If you haven't picked up your Special Beast Cannon Gohan merch by now, it's not too late. It is going to be up for a little bit more. The Special Beast Cannon merch line comes in various designs, colors, and sizes. Ships to almost anywhere in the whole world. Get yours before they go because they're going fast. Now, let's get to the video. We've been discussing Cell a lot lately here on the Geekdom 101 channel. I did 2 Dragon Ball in-depths discussing the backstory of Cell and the psychology of Cell, analyzing his evil. But wait, there's a bit more. You ever wonder why Cell resembles an insect and has insect-like qualities to him? Well, it's not an accident, and the answer is actually extremely interesting. The character of Cell has a secret backstory, and today we talk about it. Welcome to Dragon Ball X Saiyuki, where we take a deeper look at everything, and today we're going to look at Cell. I've talked a lot about Cell, as I mentioned in the intro, but not really about his origins as far as where Toriyama got the idea from, and not just that, but also his tie-in to the character of Son Gohan, because I genuinely wonder, was his connection with Gohan in the Cell Saga, that is to say they became mortal enemies, was that done on purpose by Toriyama, or was it just a coincidence? We know on this series, nothing is a coincidence. Please welcome the guy who thinks it's always that deep, even when it's not. It's Jordan. What's up?
What's up, bud? Let's do this.
I thought you were gonna pop at my "it's not that deep," which is it's our favorite line ever, bro. But if a chick ever says it's not that deep, there could be a problem. Anyways, let's talk about Cell, brother. So, Cell is directly inspired from not just a character, a creature from Journey to the West. And I want you to talk about this character and where Toriyama got the idea and how it ties into Gohan.
Well, that's right. So there is a character in Journey to the West known as the Golden Cicada, and he's essentially the first antagonist in Journey to the West, but he's also the main character in Journey to the West. When he gains his name Tripitaka, he is the monk that Sun Wukong protects on the Journey to the West. Well, prior to him being that monk, he was known as the Golden Cicada. He was essentially Buddha's favorite disciple, but the issue was, and he is portrayed as vain in most media for this reason,
which ties into Cell being a narcissist in the psychology video I did.
That's right. He fell asleep during one of Buddha's lectures about the law of Buddhism, and so Buddha could see the overconfidence in him, the fact that he was vain, the fact that he felt like he may even have a superiority complex over Buddha. He saw that himself, and so he punished him by cursing him to live 10 reincarnations on planet Earth until he could reach perfection. Now, there is tons of reincarnation-based symbolism in Dragon Ball. The planets are reborn, people are reborn through the Dragon Balls, but I don't think Toriyama blatantly played on it any more than he did with Cell. Especially the scene where Cell becomes Super Perfect Cell and is literally reborn beyond his potential that he thought he could achieve as Perfect Cell.
Well, I would say more of figuratively reborn, because he regenerated, but the rebirth part comes from the fact that he was able to regenerate back into his perfect form and actually get an upgrade to become Super Perfect Cell. And to me, that is a form of rebirth, because even he didn't know he could do that. And the way it's explained in the series is that he got a Zenkai boost from his Saiyan cells, but also his processor, his microprocessor, his nucleus recognized the final version of himself, and that's why he was able to, in a way, become reborn. So I want to just make sure people don't come down on you. We're talking about, like, it wasn't the same as it was in Buddha's story, but it's still very, very similar. And I also want to discuss the fact that Gohan's sort of funny studies about, like, bugs go all the way back to even, like, the first Dragon Ball Z movie, Dead Zone, which is produced by Toei Animation years before Cell even appeared. He's studying cicadas at the very beginning of that movie, they had no idea that this was coming, but it just goes to show that the Journey to the West story is so seeped in Asian culture. That's why we even do these videos, because so many people grew up in the West and don't even know how much of this culture is in that story.
Yeah, Toriyama said himself when he started writing Dragon Ball that his technique was to basically just take things from Journey to the West and switch things around. That's literally what he said word for word. And with Cell, the connection between Gohan and Cell is actually much deeper than people think. Cell starts off as this cicada-looking insectoid creature, and you can actually see the shell that he comes from looks much, much, much like an actual cicada. And then he ends up beyond perfection by the end of his journey and his evolution, and that is to represent the same cycle that Tripitaka went through during his 10 reincarnations until he reached perfection. And prior to those reincarnations, like I said, he's known for being vain in a lot of different interpretations of the story, and he's not just the inspiration for Cell, he was the inspiration for Krillin and Bulma, and they play on this in their own way through them as well, him being vain or good looking, or with Krillin it's like the opposite, he's ugly, and with Bulma she thinks that she's the most beautiful thing that ever existed, and that's all playing on the vanity that the golden cicada represents. And so Cell is sort of a representation of that in his own way. He believed that he was perfect over everyone else. And by the end of his evolution, the interaction between he and Gohan is a literal representation of the aspects of Gohan's character that were derived from Buddha. Because Buddha actually he actually became enlightened through the consideration that he had for insects. Whenever he was a child, he would sit in his backyard and he would see all these insects being killed whenever the landscaping crew would come in, and that actually ended up causing him pain. He actually ended up having compassion for even the smallest of life forms, and that was the insects that he saw die as a young prince.
Very much like Gohan.
Yeah, he is very, very, very much like Gohan. Gohan's character is very, very heavily influenced from Buddha himself, which is why he has this fascination with insects and why he has this universal compassion for every being that he comes into contact with. And that makes his relationship with Cell much, much, much more interesting, because the golden cicada was the student of Buddha. He was his favorite student, and Buddha had compassion for him, but he felt that the only way he could ever actually become a Buddha, a proper Buddha, was to experience these 10 reincarnations until he became a perfect being. And so the entire purpose of throwing him through the cycle of life and death was so that he could develop into a more perfect being. And that the way that Toriyama plays on this is genius, because Gohan has compassion for Cell. He has compassion for all life.
If you want to reference specifically what Jordan's talking about, go to Dragon Ball Z episode 183. He literally tells Cell, like, hey, I've got this, 182, 183, it's one of those two. He literally tells Cell, I've got this secret power inside of me, but I don't want to hurt you. He's literally trying to be merciful towards Cell. And I've seen some people say they don't really understand that because Cell's a villain. Well, Gohan himself wants to be merciful towards everything, and even though Cell is a mechanical, artificial creature, he's still alive, and so Gohan sees him as being a living creature. Even though Cell's hurt a lot of people, Gohan still wants to give him that chance, like what Goku does to other people, except for Gohan, it's more of a humanistic thing. Goku does it for the martial artist inside of him. Gohan does it more so because he cares about life. It's more of a Buddha thing for him, whereas for Goku, it's more of, it's Buddha for both, but more so the martial artist versus the humanitarian.
Yeah, there is a martial arts aspect to it for sure. But what's really cool about Gohan is he starts off a very Buddha-like figure, and then he becomes a figure that's much more reminiscent of Sun Wukong as the victorious fighting Buddha, much like Goku on Namek. Because the entire point of the victorious fighting Buddha is understanding that sometimes violence is necessary in order to preserve the peace and justice that Buddhas themselves hold dear.
Which is exactly what 16... It's exactly what 16 said.
Yeah, and that is the exact ideology that Sun Wukong represents as the victorious fighting Buddha, and that is the reason that he is justified in the use of violence despite being a Buddha himself, because he gets to basically serve as a pure-hearted being who sends beings into the cycle of reincarnation so that they can eventually become better beings. When he is destroying a being, he's not destroying them with impure intentions. He understands the cycle of life and death, and so he understands that by destroying these beings, he's actually giving them the chance to be reborn and become something better. And so that's sort of the entire idea behind Sun Wukong's character, is that he is the victorious fighting Buddha, the Buddha that can kill with pure intentions. And that is what Goku was trying to encourage Gohan to be in the Cell Saga. He was trying to tell him, hey, don't act like old Sun Wukong, because Gohan's attitude whenever he was acting cocky and he was trying to make Cell suffer, that is a literal play on Sun Wukong's old attitude before he was developed as a person. And then when Goku encourages Gohan to kill Cell with pure intentions to protect the planet, to protect everything that he holds dear, and to basically handle the situation like a martial artist, that is the philosophy that Sun Wukong himself comes to embrace at the end of the Journey to the West. So that entire scene, that entire interaction, the philosophy and the morality behind everything that Kira Toriyama is portraying in that scene directly derives from the deep philosophical and psychological themes that derive from Journey to the West.
Beautiful. And of course, in Dragon Ball Superhero, Gohan mentions the ants that become Saiyans. I mean, that's it's a little bit of an Easter egg. It's not as important as the character of Cell, but it's still one we could throw in there.
Yeah, and in Dragon Ball Online, Gohan ended up helping the entire Earth learn how to fly or become enlightened, so to speak. So that's sort of Gohan's role, is helping the entire human race become enlightened, because that was the goal of the Journey to the West. The entire reason that the monk Tripitaka went on the trip to the Journey to the West was to bring back the sutras from the West so that the entire world could experience Buddhist enlightenment. And that was what Toriyama was playing with whenever he had Gohan have the entire planet Earth learn how to fly and learn chi control and things of that nature, because chi control in martial arts is directly associated with enlightenment itself. So that's always been Gohan's role.
People have to also realize, because I know there's some people here who are probably Westerners, whenever we talk about these things and do these videos, this is because people in Asian cultures, specifically those that are derived from China or those that understand that kind of culture, unless you really study it, you have to understand that this is like a fairy tale. Like the rest of us here in the West, I guess like our version of this or whatever could end up being like something like Snow White or the Three Little Pigs, the fairy tale that pretty much everybody knows since childhood. Obviously, Journey to the West is a much bigger story, and there's more characters, it's more complex, but people in Asia learn this from childhood, so it's almost like programmed into them. So when they grow up, they become manga artists or filmmakers, and they put so much of that rich culture into their work. And that's why you see this in kung fu films, you see it in other anime. It's not just a Dragon Ball thing.
That's right. And it's Dragon Ball itself is also an allegory for martial arts, much like other films and manga and shows like Street Fighter, for example. I was just watching Street Fighter anime from the 90s, and his master, who teaches him how to use chi control and a concept similar to Ultra Instinct, the secret of emptiness, he literally hands him a sutra to learn those abilities, just like exactly in Journey to the West. So all of this stuff, even Journey to the West itself, is just the product of the rich culture and history that derives from Asia.
Yep, it is what it is. Anyways, with that being said, hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.